The year 1868 clung to the heels of war like the red clay dust that coated everything in Mercer County, Alabama. It was a dust that choked the breath and stained the floorboards, a perpetual reminder that nothing had truly been washed clean. Miss Elara Vance, 28 years old, but carrying the weary silence of 50, sat on the porch swing of the dilapidated Vance plantation house, watching the twilight bleed purple into the sky. Her daily routine was a practiced ritual against chaos: mend, sweep, count, worry. The counting was the hardest, for the ledger rarely balanced. 4 years had passed since the surrender at Appomattox, yet the peace felt provisional, like a poorly patched tire threatening to blow on a long, hard road. The air did not smell of gunpowder now, but of slow, grinding poverty and the deep, unfamiliar tension between those who had lost everything but their pride and those who had gained their freedom, but little else. Elara and her aging mother were alone in the sprawling house, the silence punctuated only by the mournful creak of the swing and the distant cry of a whippoorwill. Her 2 older brothers had never returned from the fields of Virginia, and her father had died 2 years later, his spirit broken by debt and defeat. The atmosphere was heavy with unspoken history. Every splinter in the porch railing, every missing slate on the roof was an elegy. Elara wore a dress of faded blue cotton, meticulously darned at the elbows, and her hands, once delicate, were calloused from hauling water and tending the small kitchen garden, the only patch of earth they still truly controlled. She was not a sentimental woman, but the sight of the overgrown pecan grove, once her father's pride, never failed to send a cold spear of anxiety through her chest. This revelation hit Elara with a cold shock. Kyle, her gentle, bookish brother, accused of what? Her core goal, previously vague and defined only as survival, suddenly snapped into focus: protect the family's honor and secure the legacy. She knew Kyle could never have been a spy or a trafficker, yet Albright's facts were difficult to dismiss. If Thomas Albright uncovered a truth that implicated the Vances in wartime treachery or illegal dealings, the remaining land and their good name would be forfeit to the federal government. "Come inside, Mr. Albright," Elara said, finally lowering the poker. Her hand trembled slightly, but her eyes were steady. "It seems we have a lot to discuss about the way things were in this corner of Tennessee." She had to find out what Kyle was doing and why before Albright did. Her defense of the Vance name had just begun. Elara led Thomas Albright into the cool, shadowed dining room where the remnants of the Vance family library had been moved. The northern man, though polite, had an unnerving efficiency, and she felt the urgency to understand the threat he represented. She lit another lamp, the flickering light casting long shadows that made the room feel as vast and empty as the years since the war. "My brother Kyle was 19 when he joined the 10th Tennessee. He was a rifleman, Mr. Albright. He was not a merchant, and he certainly was not an agent for my father's small-town mercantile, which mostly sold seed and twine." Albright laid the ledger open on the heavy mahogany table. It was her father's neat, firm handwriting, dated December 1862. The list wasn't of farming implements, but of items that made Elara's breath catch. 50 pounds of coarse salt, heavy wool blankets, quinine, and a disturbing quantity of dynamite caps. The total was exorbitant, clearly meant for something larger than local sale. And beneath the total, the damning entry: delivered to Agent K, Nashville Run, JV certified. Josiah Albright, my brother, was caught 3 miles south of Stones River, far from the battle lines, carrying a satchel of these supplies. He was executed as a spy. They assumed he was taking supplies to the Confederate lines, but the Union lines had plenty of salt and blankets. Why risk execution for common provisions? Elara's mind raced. Her father, John Vance, had been a strict secessionist, but he had also been terrified of the war's brutality. And Kyle had never spoken of anything but the marching and the hunger. Dynamite caps. They were used for quarry work, but also for sabotage. If Kyle was supplying the Confederacy, Mr. Albright, why would he leave this ledger behind? It's a literal confession. That is the exact question, Miss Vance.
The supplies are wrong for a simple Confederate aid mission. They're too specialized. I believe the supplies were meant for a third party entirely, and I believe the initial JV certifying the run points to your father." He tapped the final page of the ledger. "Look here. The page is slightly thicker. The paper was in..."
They realized the significance of the item/secret. The map was a key, a literal path to whatever her father and the true Agent K had been moving in 1862. And the dynamite caps suggested it was something valuable, volatile, or perhaps both. Suddenly, a realization struck Ilara. The Shiflets. Their farm lay directly along the mapped path. Mr. Shiflet, an old, suspicious man, often stood at his fence line, watching the Vance property with a fierce, proprietary bitterness. Could they have known? If anyone knew of a late-night delivery at that dock, it would be the Shiflets, Ilara whispered. Their property runs right up to the bend. The air thickened with the danger. The secret wasn't buried in the past. It was breathing, lurking just beyond the boundaries of their porch light. If they were to pursue the meaning of the map, they would have to trespass, investigate, and likely draw the unwelcome attention of neighbors who already resented the Vance name. "We go to the river bend first," Ilara declared, the decision solidifying her role in the narrative. She wouldn't wait for Thomas to investigate alone and expose her family's name. She needed to control the narrative, find the secret, and bury it for good. Now, if whatever was delivered then is still here, we need to secure it before anyone else connects Josiah Albright's ledger to this map. As they prepared to leave, Thomas placed his hand on the silver locket. "What about her, Ilara? Who is the woman?" Ilara shook her head. "I have no idea, but I suspect she is the true key to understanding Kyle's involvement and the identity of the real Agent K. She is the human connection to the danger." With a sense of dread and fierce determination, Ilara picked up the oil lamp. They stepped off the porch and into the humid, starless Tennessee night, following the faint whispers from the river bend. Her long, lonely vigil was over. The pursuit of a dangerous truth had begun. The midnight trip to the river bend was futile. All they found was a crumbling dock, half submerged in the sluggish Cumberland, and a patch of disturbed soil where the X on the map was drawn. Whatever the delivery was, it had been long gone, perhaps spirited away immediately after the original transaction in 1862. The only remaining physical clue was the silver locket and the woman's miniature portrait. "The answers aren't in the dirt, Thomas," Ilara said, wiping mud from her hands. "They're in the past. This locket, this is not a farmer's trinket. This is Nashville society pre-war finery." Thomas nodded, holding the locket under the meager light of the lantern. "The woman is wealthy, or connected to wealth. To track her, we need records, old social registers, things kept by people who remember 1862 not just as a year of battle, but as a year of balls and introductions." To go to Nashville was to face the world Ilara's family had been shut out of since the war began. A city rebuilding and bustling under the rule of Reconstruction, where the Vance name was...
Eleanor took the locket, her thumb tracing the silver filigree. Her gaze sharpened as she studied the miniature inside, and the cool composure momentarily fractured. A muscle twitched in her jaw. "My dear Ilara," she said, her voice now a low, dangerous whisper. "You haven't just brought dirt into my parlor. You have brought a ghost. This woman's name is Caroline Kress, and she didn't just vanish in 1862. She ran away from the most powerful man in this city." Eleanor looked up, her expression suddenly fearful, realizing the immense and immediate danger Ilara had just introduced into her home. "You must tell me everything, quickly." Eleanor Dubois' opulent parlor suddenly felt like a tomb, heavy with the weight of unburied secrets. Caroline Cress. The name resonated with a history Elaura's family had studiously ignored. Caroline was the fiancée of Senator Harlan Tate, the man who practically runs Nashville now, Eleanor revealed, her voice barely a breath. Brilliant, beautiful, and utterly ruthless. But Caroline was restless. She detested his politics and his avarice. In 1862, when the Union took Nashville, she vanished. Tate told everyone she had run north to family. In truth, she simply disappeared. Elara looked down at the locket, at the face of the rebellious woman. And my father? And my brother Kyle? Your father, John Vance, had a small secret operation. He wasn't just a secessionist. He was part of the Underground Railway, but working south, Eleanor whispered, leaning closer. He was helping people flee the chaos, not just slaves, but Union sympathizers, Confederate deserters, anyone who could pay. And Caroline Cress paid dearly to disappear from Tate. The revelation shattered Elara's perception of her father. He wasn't a failure, broken by debt. He was a complex figure who ran perilous routes. Thomas Albright, who had remained silently observing, finally spoke, his voice hoarse. My brother, Josiah, was executed for carrying supplies. Quinine, salt, dynamite caps. He died near Stones River, miles from where he should have been, carrying those items. If your brother Kyle was Agent K delivering those items, they weren't for the Confederacy. Eleanor flinched. The dynamite caps, yes, those were for Tate's mine operation near Stones River. Senator Tate needed them to clear a collapsed shaft. He was always obsessed with getting rich, even during the war. He needed the supplies delivered immediately, and he needed someone absolutely discreet to do it. Elara realized the horrifying connection. My father used his underground network to move Tate's illegal supplies, and Kyle was caught in the middle. Thomas's eyes, usually sharp and analytical, were suddenly clouded with a painful memory, the veteran's scar. My brother Josiah wasn't a spy for the Confederacy. He was caught trying to stop the delivery, Thomas said, his hand gripping the edge of the chair until his knuckles were white. Josiah Albright was stationed at Stones River. He had witnessed Tate's men using stolen Union supplies at that mine site. He knew the delivery, the dynamite, and the medical supplies was illegal, destined for...
Keeping her voice low and confident. If this comes out, it won't just ruin his gubernatorial run. It will put him in the federal crosshairs for treason. My brother, Kyle, witnessed this operation firsthand. The documents detailing the conspiracy are secured. This was the lie. The secret was not merely documents about supplies. It was a person's life, Caroline's, and 2 murders. Elara knew if Thorne realized the true, dangerous nature of the secret, the dynamite caps and the possibility of a concealed body, he would either run in fear or betray them instantly to Tate for a massive reward. What do you want from me? Thorne's eyes, bright with avarice, settled on Elara. Access, Tate's schedule, his private correspondence. We need to know where he goes, who he sees, and most importantly, his current land acquisitions in Mercy County. Thorne leaned back, a sneer playing on his lips. Tate has destroyed more than documents, Miss Vance. He destroyed me. Exposing him is one thing, but I need more than revenge. I need recompense. I will get you his schedule, but only if you promise me a substantial cut of the profit once Tate's assets are seized. I want my place in Nashville society back, and I want it paid for in cash. Elara forced a slow, measured nod, a silent dagger twisting in her gut. You will have it.
You will be compensated for your risk." Dramatic irony hung thick in the air. Thorne believed he was entering an agreement to gain wealth and standing by exposing a powerful man's financial crimes. In reality, he was hitching his wagon to a runaway train, risking his life for a secret that could easily explode. As Thomas and Elara left the tavern, Thomas spoke, his jaw tight. "He's a snake, Elara. He'll sell us out the minute Tate offers him a better deal." "I know," Elara admitted, pulling her shawl tighter, the humid Nashville air suddenly cold. "But a snake is useful for finding the viper's nest. We use him to get to the smokehouse before Tate does. And when we are done, we will decide how to deal with Silas Thorne." The future betrayal was cemented. The moment Silas realized the documents were far more valuable and deadly than Elara let on, their pact would dissolve into treachery. They had traded one risk for another, accelerating their dive into Tate's dangerous world. Silas Thorne did not delay. Within 24 hours of their pact, a nervous courier delivered a heavy satchel to Eleanor Dubois' mansion. It contained a sheaf of documents, photocopies of internal memos and land deeds, all bearing the same menacing name, Senator Harlan Tate. The documents confirmed Elara's worst fears. Tate, through a shell company named Cumberland Future Holdings, was systematically buying up every acre of land between the riverbend and the main road in Mercy County. The centerpiece of this acquisition was the Vance property. "Look at this," Thomas muttered, tracing the lines on a crude surveyor's map. "The primary easement for the new national..."
The smokehouse stood stark against the night sky, a squat stone cylinder that smelled perpetually of hickory and brine, and now of secrets. Using the markings on the hidden map, Thomas located a loose stone in the low foundation, cleverly concealed beneath decades of soot and dust. Working silently, they used a crowbar and managed to pry the stone free. Behind it was a dry wooden box, heavy and sealed with a brittle rope. Inside, beneath a few mundane tins of salt, they found the true treasure, a tightly wrapped packet of documents tied with the same blue ribbon that had secured the lock of hair in the locket. The packet contained 3 items: a handwritten letter, a detailed diagram, and a small leather-bound diary belonging to Kyle Vance. Elara unfolded the letter first. It was dated January 1863. "Sister, if you read this, I am gone." The ledger entry was a necessary lie. "Agent K is not me. She is Carolyn Kress, and I was moving her out of Tate's reach, not running Tate's contraband. Father knew the risk, but the price of saving her and the truth was worth it." The plot twist hit Elara with the force of a physical blow. Her brother wasn't a profiteer. He was a silent, desperate hero. The supplies listed in the ledger, the salt, quinine, and blankets, were for Carolyn's successful escape route south, disguised as Confederate aid, while the damning delivery of dynamite caps was a brilliant, tragic decoy. Thomas took the second document, the diagram. It was a rough sketch of a mine shaft located near Stones River. Attached to it was a note in Kyle's hurried hand. The caps were never meant for Tate's gold operation. They were meant to seal it forever. Carolyn knew the tunnel layouts. "We planned to detonate the entrance after she was safe, burying the evidence of Tate's stolen gold and his wartime crimes, giving him a clean slate of debt and a final farewell gift." The crucial background information was now clear. Kyle's mission was not delivery, but sabotage. The ledger entry certifying the dynamite caps was the hidden code, meant to be found later as evidence of Tate's conspiracy, which Carolyn had helped him uncover. The tragedy of Josiah Albright's death suddenly changed its meaning. Josiah intercepted the run at the riverbend too early. He saw the supplies and the dynamite, assumed Kyle was aiding the enemy, and died trying to expose the crime. But he was fighting for Kyle's plan, not against it. Elara looked at the diary, tears finally stinging her eyes. Kyle's final entry confirmed it. December 30th, 1862. Josiah's boy is dead. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and now my window is closed. I can't risk the detonation, not with Tate's patrol.
They had secured the dynamite caps and Kyle's diary, the proof of motive and truth, but the gold tallies, the hard evidence needed to convict Tate, were gone. Back at the dilapidated house, with Thomas slowly regaining consciousness, the chilling reality of the midpoint settled in. Tate had struck back, not with a public attack, but with surgical precision. How had he known they were at the smokehouse tonight? Ilara stared down at the documents Silas Thorne had provided. One of the documents, a communication memo, was marked with a tiny, almost invisible pencil tally. 3 small hash marks next to the name Ilara Vance. Silas, Ilara murmured, the name tasting like ash. The goal now seemed impossible. Thorne had not just sold them out, he had sold the map, the location, and their entire plan to Tate. Tate was now fully prepared, holding the vital evidence and aware of their every move. They were trapped between Tate's absolute power in Nashville and the hostile isolation of their own county, with only a diary and a box of explosives left to fight a man who controlled the future of Tennessee. The pressure had officially mounted, threatening to crush them. The silence after the ambush was a heavy verdict. Ilara, dabbing the blood from Thomas's split lip, felt the cold weight of the remaining assets, Kyle's diary and the small, heavy box of dynamite caps. The gold tallies, the only hard evidence of Tate's treason, were gone, seized by the men Silas Thorne had surely alerted. "We can't go back to Nashville," Thomas rasped, testing his jaw. "Tate has us flagged. The minute we present Kyle's diary, he'll just dismiss it as the ravings of a dead rebel and destroy us with legal maneuvering. Without the gold tallies, the press won't touch it." Ilara looked at the box of explosives. This was no longer a legal fight. It was a battle for leverage, for justice paid in a different currency. Her strategy snapped into sharp, dangerous focus. "We don't go to the press. We go to Tate," she stated, her voice steady, despite the trembling in her hands. "He didn't just want the tallies. He wanted the dynamite caps. He needs them destroyed because they are the physical proof of his operation. If we possess the caps, we possess the power." The plan she outlined was desperate, built on brinkmanship and commitment to the absolute end. They would not meet Tate in the city of his power, nor on her land which he was about to claim. They would lure him to the one place where his crime was rooted and his secrecy was paramount, the abandoned gold mine near Stones River, a remote, forgotten place she mentally dubbed the Delta. "We will offer him a trade," Ilara continued. "The caps and the promise of perpetual silence about Caroline Kress in exchange for his signed confession, a complete admission of his illegal operation and Josiah's death. We will use Kyle's diary to prove we know the truth about the mine's location and the true Agent K." Thomas looked at the box of caps, understanding the immense risk. They were choosing to hold an explosive threat over a U.S. senator. "If he calls our bluff, Ilara, he'll have us arrested for terrorism. He'll never sign a confession." "He will sign if he believes that one misplaced cap—"
It? The remaining gold tallies, perhaps? I have what you so foolishly thought you could use to blackmail me. He gestured to his bodyguard, who held up the very wooden box they had lost, its contents secured. The climax begins. Ilara stepped forward, her spine rigid with resolve. Her plan relied on Tate's arrogance, his conviction that he held all the cards. "The gold tallies were mere bait, Senator," Ilara countered, her voice ringing with a strength she didn't know she possessed. "A necessary distraction. What you truly need, what threatens to expose your entire empire, is still with us." She paused, letting the words hang in the hot, still air. "We know about Caroline Kress. We know about the true purpose of your mine, and we have the dynamite caps your illegal operation used." Tate's confident smirk vanished, replaced by a flicker of pure, unadulterated rage.
He took a step forward, his eyes narrowing. "You bluff girl. My men swept your land. You have nothing." "Oh, but we do, Senator," Ilara said, her hand reaching under the bench, pulling out Kyle's diary. She opened it to the final damning page, where Kyle had written about Josiah's death and Tate's greed. "We have my brother's dying confession, and we have what he hid, specifically for this moment." Then, with a deliberate, slow movement that drew gasps from Tate's bodyguards, Ilara pulled out the canvas-wrapped package. She unwrapped it, revealing the heavy, dull cylinders of dynamite caps. The air immediately grew thick with unspoken fear, the smell of gunpowder, and the chilling promise of destruction. "My brother planned to seal your mind forever, Senator," Ilara declared, her voice now a powerful echo in the small depot. "And unless you sign a full confession to your wartime profiteering, the murder of Josiah Albright, and the illegal operation of the Cress mine, we will finish what he started. We will detonate the mine entrance. Every last ounce of your hidden gold will be buried for eternity. And we will ensure that every newspaper in the country hears why." Thomas stepped forward, holding a quill and a parchment. The moment of truth had arrived. Tate, his face contorted in fury, was forced to confront the impossible choice: his reputation or his fortune. Senator Harlan Tate stared at the dynamite caps, his polished facade cracking under the terrible weight of his greed. He looked from the explosives to Ilara, then to the quill Thomas held ready for the confession. "You believe a scrawled diary and a few old caps can bring down a senator? You are naive, girl. I'll simply deny the signature. I'll have you arrested and your debt called in tomorrow." Tate's voice was a low snarl, pure threat. "Give me the box now and I will let you walk away with your worthless land." "You are right to fear the explosion, Senator, but not the one I hold. You fear the truth."
Spattered one, clutched in one hand. In the other, she held the wooden box containing the gold tallies, now stained with the blood of Silas Thorne, who lay still. His final act, a greedy, fatal miscalculation. The price of land and loyalty, Ilara thought numbly, had been paid in the coin of tragedy. Thomas, his face bruised but his resolve unbroken, moved quickly to Harlan Tate. The senator, his bespoke suit covered in dust and his composure utterly shattered, was trembling, not from fear of death, but from the sudden, catastrophic loss of his fortune and his future. "It is finished, Senator," Thomas said, his voice flat and final. He retrieved the binding ropes he had packed earlier, meticulously securing Tate and his last bodyguard to the sturdy support beams of the depot. His military training had taken over, lending calm to the chaos. Ilara's mind, however, was preoccupied with the past. She looked out the broken depot window, across the tracks, toward the vast overgrown cotton field that stretched toward the river bend, the site of Josiah Albright's death. The field now seemed to breathe a collective sigh, the years of hidden corruption finally exposed. She realized her father hadn't been a conspirator, he had been a protector. Kyle hadn't run in shame, he had run to keep the final damning evidence safe. She secured the resolution with deliberate, methodical action. She placed the gold tallies and the signed confession, now undeniable proof of Tate's murder and treason, into a strong leather envelope. The dynamite caps, the symbols of their desperate leverage, she tucked back into the bag. They were no longer weapons, but proof. The true power was the paper. "We have to move," Ilara said, her eyes meeting Thomas's. "Tate has powerful friends. They will cover this up if they find him first." They left Tate and his remaining man bound tightly, a bitter promise of justice left for the approaching morning. As they rode away on the exhausted mare, the sun was a painful sliver just below the horizon, bathing the cotton field in a pale, ethereal light. Ilara felt no triumph, only the profound exhaustion of a war finally concluded.
She had secured her legacy, not by preserving the decaying house, but by proving her family's honor and bringing peace to two dead brothers. The Vance name was no longer synonymous with debt or rebellion, but with the painful, necessary truth. The old debts of Josiah Albright, Caroline Kress, and Kyle Vance were now settled. The land itself, coated in the dust of '68, could finally begin to heal. The morning after the Depot confrontation, the truth, fueled by Alara's confession and the bloody gold tallies, detonated in Nashville with far greater force than any dynamite cap. Eleanor Dubois, fiercely protective of Caroline Kress's name, ensured the documents were delivered directly to the only honest newspaperman in the city. The scandal was immense. Senator Harlan Tate was arrested before noon,